Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I've got a special episode for you today. So you know that I like Plasti Dip as a product. I've got my Plasti Dip green Miata, and I've also got my quartz blue BMW. Now I'm going to surprise my wife by doing her SUV. All right, so this is a 2010 Acura MDX. I don't think I've ever seen this car Plasti Dipped out there. It's a pretty nice, peppy SUV. It's a good-looking car. It served us well for a while. I think we bought it, I don't know, it was about 3 or 4 years old when we bought it, but it's been really good. The only maintenance I've had to do on it is just basic maintenance, plus I did change the alternator recently, but other than that, it's fine. All right, so Plasti Dip is not paint, it's a peelable coating. And the key thing that most people do wrong is they don't use enough product. You have to have many layers of the product for it to peel off. Most people are annoyed by Plasti Dip when it comes time to remove it. Say they bought a new car and somebody did a bad Plasti Dip job on it and it's impossible to remove, and they hate the product after that. They never actually used it themselves. So when you use enough product, you can peel off a panel in one sheet. It's basically like vinyl removal, and there's really nothing to it. The second thing is you need to know how to spray it, and we'll go through all those steps as we get into it. And the third thing is you need to know its limitations. It will never be as glossy as OEM paint. However, my wife was expressed some interest in kind of a gloss top coat, and so I'm going to be doing that. But as you'll see, glossy in the Plasti Dip world really means more like a satin. So we'll see how glossy we can get it. And the final thing is your preparation. So compared to paint, Plasti Dip is very easy to prepare for. Really what you're doing is you're washing the car very thoroughly. You're wiping it down with something like pre-dip spray. Or just alcohol. You can wipe it down with isopropyl alcohol, and what that's doing is it's removing all the wax and oils and anything else, road debris, grime, all that stuff from the car, and that makes sure that you're going to get the proper adhesion for the dip. That's where a lot of people go wrong, is they don't, even though it's a simple prep compared to painting, some people miss that step. So that's where you really need to spend your time to do that. So that's our first step, is we're going to prep the car by painting it, by washing it very well and then letting it dry completely. That's another important piece to this, is you really want to give it a whole 24 hours to dry. I'm going to be blowing air into some of these crevices to get the water out to make it dry better, but a full 24 hours protects you from getting any kind of water. Any water that runs off of the paint and onto uncured dip will basically ruin that panel. So that's why we need to be so careful. So let's start with step one, the washing. All right, so I'm going to use a foam cannon, and this technique involves first wetting down the car, which we're going to do, and then we're going to use the foam cannon with some soap in here. Normally you would use car wash soap. However, for dipping, some dishwashing soap works better. It's way more aggressive. It's not great for the paint. Don't wash your car with this all the time, but for dipping, it takes off the waxes a lot easier, makes it easier to wipe it down afterwards so that you get proper adhesion. So I recommend the dishwashing soap to get rid of all that. So we're filling up our foam cannon, get that ready, and then we're gonna start spraying down the car. That looks better. So we have got Everything dried off. The roof is dried off. What you want to do is go around all the doors on the inside and outside, all the door handles, around all these plastic bits, raise the back hatch. You'll see water dripping out of there, like right here, still dripping. And you want to pay special attention to things like this. This is where stuff can occur. You can get water in there, so you want to pop that open and dry it specifically. Up on the rain channels up above, down here. And the mirrors have a tendency to drip out. Now, in our case, we're going to be taping off the mirrors. We're going to leave those black, and also the roof is black. But this thing up here is going to go to red. All right, so this is a recent acquisition. I have a lot of the Lowe's Cobalt brand power tools. This one came with a 4 amp hour battery, which was nice. So it was a pretty good deal. And so what I'm going to do with it is just spray out all the water. All right, so once the water's mostly out, we still have a whole day to let it dry. We want to assess, kind of walk around and see at this point if there's any kind of corrections that we want to make to the paint. Plasti Dip will do a really good job of hiding minor imperfections, little dings, little scratches that you might have in here. There's no reason to really do much with those unless you want it to be as fresh as possible going underneath the dip. Bigger things, I don't know if this is one, but anything that's rough will show through the dip. Now, if you're going for a matte finish, roughness will not show through very much, but because the matte finish hides a lot of imperfections. But if you're going for anything with a polish, like a high gloss top coat, then that may be a different story, and you're going to see some of that stuff. Now, some of these things where it's gotten a little scratched up, that stuff is actually going to be hidden pretty well. You're not really going to see that passing through it. Here's a little crinkle in the paint where this bumper kind of bounced a little bit, and so that thing is going to show through just a tad. And if you wanted to, you could basically polish that down a little bit, and it will make it a lot less noticeable. It is entirely up to you how good you want the paint to be going in underneath the dip. Really, it just needs to be clean. We're going to wipe it down several times with alcohol and the pre-dip spray. So you can clay bar it if you want. That does not cause a problem with adhesion. Plasti Dip works fine against super smooth paint. It could roll off of the factory, and then you could Plasti Dip it, and it would be fine. Plasti Dip does not need any roughness at all to adhere properly. So you can feel free to clay bar, to polish, to do whatever you want. That's what I did with the BMW, actually. I kind of cleaned the paint completely before I did the spray, so that when and if I ever peel it off, well, I will eventually. It's been about 2 years now on this color. When I peel it off, it'll be in perfect shape. So while the car's drying, you can make your plan of attack as far as what's going to need to be taped and how things are going to work. On this car, it's actually super easy. This is the easiest car to tape, I think, because you have large swaths of space that are basically just plastic. That whole bottom section is plastic. We're going to remove the license plate. We're going to tape off the lights, the grille. There's this thin section right in here that's going to be painted. The hood is going to be painted. The A-pillars are going to be painted, I say painted, dipped, but the roof is not. So we're saving a lot of dip by just leaving this black. It's convenient that this vehicle is black. I find that makes for either black, white, silver. Those type of colors make for a better dipping experience, because when you open it, it's not too outrageous a change that the inside panels are not the same color as the outside. So that it looks, you know, it's a little bit weird, but when it's black, you really don't notice it at all. That is the case with the Miata. Come over here and show you if it's not too dark. And so when you open this up, you know, whatever, it doesn't really look crazy. It's black on the inside and it kind of fades away. You don't even notice it. So after you've figured out, you know, you're taping obviously all this, you're going to put some tape and drape across the top of the roof. That saves a lot of time to use that kind of stuff. You know, the tape and drape has a tape edge on one side, and then you just tape it down with some regular tape on the other side. The only thing of interest, and also I'm going to leave these black, so this can just be folded in. I don't quite know what to do with this little triangle piece right here. I think I'm just going to dip it the same body color, and if it looks silly with this being cut in off at black, I'll just peel it. It'll be just that simple, so no problem at all. The only thing that's a little bit interesting on this car is what Dip likes to have is a big gap, you know, so something like this trim is really no problem, because if you look in here, there's a pretty wide gap right here. You're going to tape up to that gap, and the spray is going to go down onto the top of the door, and it's going to peel off. The tape's going to peel off just fine without hurting the dip that's right here. On this side of the door, the top of the door, on the other hand, it's a different story. You've got this weather stripping that goes all the way up to the top. So what I'm going to do is back here, you can just sort of pop this out. So there's a little clip. Then you just have to see what's available on your car, but if this is the case. But this just peels out of a little channel, and I don't even have to take the whole thing off, you know, the whole door. I just have to peel it back on the top so that the dip can get in and have a nice edge right here. We're going to tape the door, obviously, the top of the door, and that's going to go all the way down and across. The only place that it can't be done like that is right here on this rear quarter window. And so this thing is going to require a little bit more effort in terms of taping. We're going to tape very closely along here. And there's two approaches to dealing with the tape here. Once you've sprayed your last coat, approach number one is to peel this when your last coat is still wet. So you're going to peel it off, and hopefully it will not tear the Plasti Dip or pull on it. I've never had very much luck with that. So what I do is I come in with an actual tiny razor blade, not a utility knife, not an X-Acto knife, an actual razor blade, and I'll insert it into the stripping right here and run it down. It has to be super sharp because otherwise it won't cut the Plasti Dip. And I'll just make a slight incision so that it'll help that tape peel off. And that's the only weird part of this car. The rest of this car is very simple. What's good about this car is that the handles will stay chrome, and handles are a high traffic area, and on the BMW they're body colored, and when you spray dip behind here, it's going to want to peel by people's hands being on it all the time and rubbing, you know, and twisting and stuff like that. It's going to want to peel, so you have to take special precautions to protect it. What I did is I put a piece of vinyl tape on the back of this, and it works great. However, if you don't have to deal with that, it's best not to. So you can tape off just this chrome and spray behind here, no problem. You may have to come in with an extra you know, swoop or two spray and go through that process, but to get behind here well. But this is convenient, the fact that it's this style of door. Coming around to the back, I'm going to leave this top little rear spoiler black. I think that's usually what people do when they have a two-tone car with a black roof. They leave, if there's a spoiler of this type of thing, it will. I've seen some Subarus, some other things with that, other hatchbacks which have that styling. I'm just going to leave it black, and not because it's going to look weird from some angle. It'll look fine from the back. It might look a little odd with this being red and this being black, but I think it's pretty natural to have a second color for the spoiler, and so I think it's just going to flow better with the roof if we leave it black. So I'm just going to do that. We're going to be spraying over this badging. I find that the Plasti Dip peels off the badges very well. I've never had any problems with that. So, and down in here. As we go through and do wipe downs, you want to pay very special attention to all this stuff. Really get in there, all these little gaps, especially this one, which is very fine lettering. You'll want to get in there really, really well with the alcohol and the pre-dip spray. All right, so like I said, I'm going to remove this trim so that this is not pressing up against the body panel. And the way you do that is you can just peel it back. There's this little tab right here, and then you'll see a series, I've peeled it back a little bit already, of little clips. And so these come out, these look like this when they're in here, and all you do is you pull back lightly so that it comes off of one side, and then it pulls out the other side. And you can see it's just a little hole. When we go to reinstall it, we're just gonna put it on one side, and then pull it and put it back on. It's gonna go like that. So we're just gonna pull these off all the way. You can just leave this kind of hanging like this. It's not really gonna do anything. And we can close the door. So now the dip is gonna go right into here and leave a nice edge that's gonna be solid that this weather stripping can go against. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's day 2, and what I'm doing is just going around the car. I first laid out some tarps here. I'm just going to do it outside. I normally do it in the garage, but there's really not a lot of working room in my garage for an SUV painting job, and so just going to do it outside. It's a nice day. There's no bugs, nothing like that. Pollen season is over, so shouldn't be much to fall onto it. So I'm going around the car and removing things like the license plate. We're going to clean up behind there, obviously, wipe that down. I removed the mud flaps. It's just a couple screws on the back. Wow. And then really nothing on this edge, but then on the back here, it's another couple screws, a couple 10mm bolts actually underneath it, and a somewhat annoying clip is underneath there. And then get the license plate off of here, and we should be good. All right, time was getting away from me, so I didn't record the tape job, but as you can see, I got it everything taped up, and also the roof. And what we're doing now is laying down one light coat. The coverage is like 50% on purpose, and that's to give it something to kind of grab onto. We're going to do wetter coats on the succeeding coats. We're going to do about 4 coats total, and they're going to be fairly wet, so we'll just wait for this to dry, and we'll be all set to proceed. All right, this is about 3 coats in. Coverage is almost there. This red on black is like a lot slower than other colors that I've done. In terms of full color coverage, you can still see a little bit of black coming through. I'm really not able to do heavier coats than this though, because if I do, it starts building up too much and it gets a run. So you got to be aware of that. But it's coming along. All right, last coat. The hood is still drying. Just finished that. And this weather, which is kind of mid to high 60s and somewhat high humidity, Plasti Dip dries really quickly. It's basically, by the time I get around the car, it's completely dry to the touch. Yeah, this is we're at about more than 4.5 gallons. By the time I finish, I might do one more coat on the hood, just depending on if it looks kind of stripy or something like that. But it will be about almost 5 gallons used. So we'll be ready for the high gloss top coat. So not good lighting or an angle. I'll take some better pictures tomorrow morning. I lost daylight, but everything is done. 2 coats of the top glossy top coat, and it's curing now. The paint's still pretty tacky. Hopefully you all think I don't mean the tacky as in looks horrible, but I'm going to wipe it down with some of the what is this called? The dip coat. This stuff is really good. They recommend it on the DYC site, and yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. It really changes the feel of the dip after just one application. So it's pretty sweet. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. I didn't want to do too much. There's some tape residue on some of the chrome and things like that, and I didn't want to fix it too much, just because I was afraid of bumping the paint. I did that once, and it marred it. So I wanted to be really careful. One good thing about painting it in cooler weather is it does work to peel when wet, as I found out. So that was definitely helpful, being able to actually apply that technique. So yeah, we'll get some better shots tomorrow morning and show you the finished product. All right, the Acura SUV is complete. We've got it coated with dip coat. It's all nice and protected, and it's fully cured, and we now have our garage of dip. Red, green, blue. Got everything. See that? This is a few days later. A little dusty at the moment, but things are looking nice. Got the miscellaneous overspray things wiped off kind of around here. You just have to clean everything up. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. Fair amount of gloss on the paint. This is about 3 coats of the high gloss top coat. You know, not glossy like satin. I mean, it's more of a satin finish, not glossy like OEM paint, but still get a fair amount of shine. And then the roof is just black, and this little spoiler still black. Looks good, and that's about it. All right, that's going to do it for today. Thanks for watching.